Welcome back to another NFL weekly recap of the 2024 season. This week we got week 12, in which today we have 13 games. And the 6 teams on byes this week were the Atlanta Falcons, Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals, Jacksonville Jaguars, New Orleans Saints, and the New York Jets. If you like this type of content, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate all the support as we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So without further ado, let's get straight into this one and start off with Thursday Night Football. Between two AFC North divisional opponents, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, which turned out to be a snow game. The Cleveland Browns pulled it out with a 24-19 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers, as the Browns are now 3-8, while the Steelers fall to 8-3. Russell Wilson went 21 for 28 with 270 yards and a touchdown, and Jaylen Warren led the team in rushing with 45 yards and a touchdown. Calvin Austin III also led the team in receiving with 78 yards and a touchdown on the day, while Jameis Winston went 18 for 27 with 219 yards and an interception. Nick Chubb led the team in rushing with 59 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Jameis Winston had a touchdown on the ground as well. Jerry Jeudy led the team in receiving with 85 yards on the play. The Pittsburgh Steelers opened up the scoring with a field goal, which was then responded with a Cleveland touchdown, and heading into halftime, Cleveland had a 10-3 lead over Pittsburgh. Starting in the second half, the Steelers scored the first points with a field goal, and then each team scored touchdowns as Cleveland led 18-13. The Steelers then scored a touchdown to take a 19-18 lead over the Browns, and on the final Browns drive of the game, they scored a touchdown and held on to a 24-19 victory. Next, we have a NFC matchup between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New York Giants. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Giants 30-7, as the Buccaneers are 5-6, while the Giants fall to 2-9. Baker Mayfield went 24 for 30 with 294 yards. Bucky Irving led the team in rushing with 88 yards and a touchdown. Rachaad White, Baker Mayfield, and Sean Tucker each had a rushing touchdown on the day, while Mike Evans led the team in receiving with 68 yards. Tommy DeVito started for the Giants, going 21 for 31 with 189 yards, while Tyrone Tracy Jr. led the team in rushing with 42 yards. Devin Singletary had a rushing touchdown, while Malik Neighbors led the team in receiving with 64 yards on the play. To open up the game on the first drive, the Buccaneers scored a touchdown and then a field goal a couple drives after, and a couple more touchdowns to end the first half. They had a 23-0 lead over the Giants heading into halftime. On the second drive of the second half, the Giants scored a touchdown, as by that point the Buccaneers had a 30-7 lead, and the teams did not score after that, as the Buccaneers easily held on. The next game of the week was between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Carolina Panthers, in which the Chiefs narrowly beat the Panthers 30-27. They are now 10-1 in the league, and the Panthers fall to 3-8. Patrick Mahomes went 27 for 37 with 269 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Kareem Hunt led the team in rushing with 68 yards. Noah Gray led the team in receiving with 66 yards and 2 touchdowns, while DeAndre Hopkins had a touchdown on the day as well. Bryce Young went 21 for 35 with 263 yards and a touchdown, while Chuba Hubbard led the team in rushing with 58 yards and a touchdown. David Moore led the team in receiving with 81 yards and a touchdown on the day. The Chiefs scored a touchdown to open up the game, and then a field goal, which was then responded by 2 Panthers field goals. Heading into halftime, Kansas City led the Panthers 20-9. The Panthers got the ball to start off the second half and scored a touchdown, which was then responded by a Chiefs touchdown and then a Panthers field goal. At that time, it was a one-possession game, as Kansas City led 27-19. On the final Carolina Panthers drive, they scored a touchdown but failed to get the 2-point conversion. And on the final drive of the game, the Chiefs scored a field goal to win the game. The next game of the week was a NFC East divisional matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders, in which the Cowboys beat the Commanders 34-26. The Cowboys are now 4-7, while the Commanders fall to 7-5. Cooper Rush went 24 for 32 with 247 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Rico Dowdle led the team in rushing with 86 yards on the day. CeeDee Lamb led the team in receiving with 67 yards, while Luke Schoonmaker and Jalen Tolbert each had a touchdown on the day. Jaden Daniels went 25 for 38 with 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, while Jaden Daniels also led the team in rushing with 74 yards and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin led the team in receiving with 102 yards and a touchdown, while Zach Ertz had a touchdown on the day as well. The Commanders opened up the scoring with a field goal, and there were lots of missed field goals to start off the game. Heading into halftime, we were tied up at 3-3, while the Commanders scored a touchdown on their opening drive in the second half, which was then responded by a Cowboys touchdown as the score was 10-9. The Cowboys then scored a field goal, and then a flurry of touchdowns were scored as Dallas led 27-17. The Commanders made it a one-possession game with a field goal, making it 27-20. The Commanders then scored a touchdown as the score was 27-26. The Cowboys then capped it off with a final touchdown and then picked off Jaden Daniels to end the game. The next game of the week was a AFC East divisional matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots. The Dolphins beat the Patriots 34-15. The Dolphins are now 5-6, while the Patriots fall to 3-9. Drake May went 22 for 37 with 222 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, while Antonio Gibson led the team in rushing with 31 yards on the day. Demario Douglas led the team in receiving with 62 yards, while Austin Hooper had a touchdown on the day. Tua Tagovailoa went 29 for 40 with 317 yards and 4 touchdowns, while Devin Achane led the team in rushing with 32 yards. Jalen Waddle led the team in receiving with 144 yards and a touchdown, while Jonnu Smith also had a touchdown on the day. The first points of the game were scored by a Miami touchdown as they had 21 points in a row and then make it 24 and then 31 as that was the score heading into the second half. The Patriots then scored a touchdown in the third quarter and then had a fumble return touchdown as that made the score 31-15. The Dolphins finally scored with a field goal to win 34-15 as they won pretty handedly. The next game of the week was a AFC South divisional matchup between the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans, in which the Titans beat the Texans 32-27. The Titans are now 3-8, while the Texans fall to 7-5. Will Levis went 18 for 24 with 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Tony Pollard led the team in rushing with 119 yards and a touchdown, while Calvin Ridley led the team in receiving with 93 yards. Chig Okonkwo and Nick Westbrook-Ikine each had a touchdown on the day. CJ Stroud went 20 for 33 with 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, while Joe Mixon led the team in rushing with 22 yards on the day. Nico Collins led the team in receiving with 92 yards and a touchdown, while Cade Stover also had a touchdown on the day as well. The Texans got the ball to start off the game and capped it off with a touchdown, which was then responded by a field goal and 2 touchdowns by the Titans as they led the Texans 17-7. The Texans then responded with a touchdown and a field goal to tie the game up at 17. Heading into halftime, the Titans scored a field goal on their final drive, taking a 22-17 lead heading into halftime. The Titans got the ball to start off the half and scored a field goal, and then the Texans had a pick six on Will Levis as that gave them a 24-23 lead in the third quarter, and then Will Levis scored a touchdown as the Titans led 32-27. The Texans failed to score a point after and gave up a safety to lock it up for a Titans win. The next game of the week was between the Detroit Lions and the Indianapolis Colts, in which the Lions beat the Colts 24-6. The Lions are now 10-1, while the Colts fall to 5-7. Jared Goff went 26 for 36 with 269 yards, while Jahmyr Gibbs led the team in rushing with 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery also had a touchdown on the ground. Jamison Williams led the team in receiving with 64 yards on the day, while Anthony Richardson went 11 for 28 with 172 yards. Anthony Richardson also led the team in rushing with 61 yards on the day, while Michael Pittman Jr. led the team in receiving with 96 yards on the day. The Colts got the ball to start off the game and scored a field goal, taking a 3-0 lead, which was then responded by a Lions touchdown and then a field goal by the Colts. But after the second quarter, they failed to score any points, and the Lions just kept on scoring and won 24-6. The next game of the week was a NFC North divisional matchup between the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings beat the Bears 32-27 in overtime. The Vikings are now 9-2, while the Bears fall to 4-7. Sam Darnold went 22 for 34 with 330 yards and 2 touchdowns. Aaron Jones led the team in rushing with 106 yards and a touchdown, while Jordan Addison had a career day with 162 yards and a touchdown, while Jalen Nailor also had a touchdown on the day. Caleb Williams went 32 for 47 with 340 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Caleb Williams also led the team in rushing with 33 yards, while Roschon Johnson had a rushing touchdown on the day as well. DJ Moore led the team in receiving with 106 yards and a touchdown, while Keenan Allen also had a touchdown on the day. To open up the scoring, the Bears scored a touchdown, which was then answered right back with a Vikings touchdown, and heading into halftime, the Vikings led the Bears 14-10. The Vikings then scored a field goal on the first drive of the second half, taking a 17-10 lead over the Bears, and then scored a touchdown to make it 24-10. The Bears then cut it to 24-16 and then scored a touchdown to make it 27-24. And it was crazy, the sequence heading into overtime, as the Bears scored an onside kick and then scored a field goal to tie it up at 27 to head it into overtime. The Bears then went 3 and out in overtime, and then the Vikings won it in overtime with a field goal. The next game of the week was a AFC West divisional matchup between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos, in which the Broncos beat the Raiders 29-19. The Broncos are now 7-5, while the Raiders fall to 2-9. Bo Nix went 25 for 42 with 273 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Jaleel McLaughlin led the team in rushing with 44 yards on the day. Cortland Sutton led the team in receiving with 97 yards and 2 touchdowns as he popped off. Gardner Minshew went 25 for 42 with 230 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception before he hurt his shoulder, and Desmond Ridder had to come in going 5 for 10 with 64 yards. Sincere McCormick led the team in rushing with 33 yards, while Jacoby Myers led the team in receiving with 121 yards, while Amir Abdullah had a touchdown on the day as well. To open up the scoring, the Broncos scored a field goal, which was then responded by a Raiders touchdown, and it was an exchange of 2 field goals each heading into halftime as the Raiders led the Broncos 13-9. The Broncos then scored a touchdown on their second drive of the second half, leading 16-13, and then scored a field goal to push it up to 19-13, which was then responded by a Raiders field goal. The Broncos then scored a touchdown, and then the Raiders responded back with a field goal to make it 26-19. The Raiders then failed to score any more points as the Broncos made it a 2-possession game and capped off their victory with a field goal to give us the final score of 29-19. The next game of the week was between the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers, in which the Packers demolished the 49ers 38-10. The Packers are now 8-3, while the 49ers fall to 5-6. Brandon Allen started for the injured Brock Purdy, going 17 for 29 with 199 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, while Christian McCaffrey led the team in rushing with 31 yards. George Kittle led the team in receiving with 82 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Love went 13 for 23 with 163 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Josh Jacobs led the team in rushing with 106 yards and 3 touchdowns. Romeo Doubs led the team in receiving with 54 yards, while Tucker Kraft and Malik Heath had a touchdown each in the game. The Packers started off the scoring with a touchdown and held a 17-0 lead to begin the game. Heading into halftime, the score was 17-7 as the Niners got a touchdown back. And in the third quarter, the Packers scored a field goal to take a 24-7 lead, which was then responded with a Niners field goal to make it 24-10. The Packers then increased their lead to 31-10 with a touchdown, and then to 38-10. And that's how we ended off the game, as the Packers dominated the Niners on the day. The next game of the week was a NFC West divisional matchup between the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals, in which the Seahawks beat the Cardinals 16-6. Both teams are 6-5 heading into Week 13. Kyler Murray went 24 for 37 with 285 yards and an interception, while Trey Benson led the team in rushing with 18 yards on the day. Trey McBride led the team in receiving with 133 yards, while Geno Smith went 22 for 31 with 254 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, while Kenneth Walker led the team in rushing with 41 yards. Jackson Smith and Jigba led the team in receiving with 77 yards and a touchdown, while opening up the scoring was the Cardinals with a field goal. And heading into halftime, the Seahawks led the Cardinals 7-3. Kyler Murray then threw a pick six, as that gave the Seahawks a 13-3 lead over the Cardinals, and to make it a 2-possession game, the Seahawks capped it off with a field goal as they won 16-6. The next game of the week was Sunday Night Football at SoFi Stadium, in which the Eagles beat the Rams 37-20. The Eagles are now 9-2, while the Rams fall to 5-6. Jalen Hurts went 15 for 22 with 179 yards and a touchdown, while Saquon Barkley had a career day with 255 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing, while Kenneth Gainwell also had a touchdown on the ground. A.J. Brown led the team in receiving with 109 yards and a touchdown, while Matthew Stafford went 24 for 36 with 243 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Kyron Williams led the team in rushing with 72 yards and a touchdown. Puka Nacua led the team in receiving with 117 yards, while Cooper Kupp and Demarcus Robinson each had a touchdown on the day. The scoring was opened up with the Eagles field goal, which was then responded by a Rams touchdown, and heading into halftime, the Eagles led the Rams 13-7. The Eagles then scored a touchdown to open up the second half as they led 20-7. The Rams then responded with a touchdown, and then the Eagles responded with another touchdown, leading 27-14. The Eagles then scored a field goal and a touchdown as they led 37-14, and then the Rams got one touchdown back, but by then it was too late as the Eagles beat them 37-20. The final game of the week was the Har-Bowl on Monday night, as the Baltimore Ravens defeated the Los Angeles Chargers 30-23. The Ravens are now 8-4, while the Chargers fall to 7-4, while Brother John got the best of his little brother Jim on the night. He is now 3-0 over Jim in the NFL head-to-head games. Lamar Jackson went 16 for 22 with 177 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Derrick Henry led the team in rushing with 140 yards, and Justice Hill and Lamar Jackson each had a rushing touchdown on the day. Zay Flowers led the team in receiving with 62 yards, while both Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman each had a touchdown on the day. Justin Herbert went 21 for 36 with 218 yards, while J.K. Dobbins led the team in rushing with 40 yards, but got hurt heading into halftime and did not return. Justin Herbert and Gus Edwards each had a touchdown on the day, as that was Gus Edwards' first touchdown as a Charger. Ladidi McConkey led the team in receiving with 83 yards on the day. He is showing up and showing out each week, week in, week out. The Chargers opened up the scoring with a touchdown and then a field goal as they had a 10-0 lead over the Ravens, which was then responded by 2 Ravens touchdowns as they led 14-10 on the final drive of the first half. The Chargers then responded with a field goal as we headed into halftime, with Baltimore leading 14-13. The Ravens then got the ball to start off the second half, scoring a field goal, which was then responded by a Chargers field goal and then a Ravens touchdown as they held a 23-16 lead over the Chargers and then scored a touchdown on the next drive, taking a 30-16 lead over the Chargers. On the final Charger drive of the game, they scored a touchdown but failed to get the 2 points, and then the final score was 30-23. And that recaps all 13 games for Week 12 in the 2024-2025 NFL season. Let me know in the comments below, who do you guys think will win the matchups next week? And if you like this type of content, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate all the support as we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If you're a fan of the NFL and college football, stay tuned as we'll be covering both all season long. Appreciate all the support, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.